For years, Amazon was Seattle's largest employer, but the company has lost its crown. We'll tell you who the new big employer in town is, and we'll bring you some good news. But first, Hannah Krieg, founder of The Burner, and executive producer Ashley Smith are here to talk about our region's continuing response to a potential ICE expansion. Hannah, Ashley, thank you for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much.
So recently, the Affiliated Tribes of Northwest Indians, which represents 57 tribes in the western U.S., they passed a resolution demanding that the Department of Homeland Security respect tribal sovereignty. Washington universities are updating their policies and trying to retrain their staff on what to do if ICE comes to campus. And as you all probably know, Wired reported a couple weeks ago that ICE is expanding nationwide, including a new location in Tukwila. So the address that was listed for that potential expansion location was Riverfront Technical Park, which is owned by the commercial real estate company, the Saby Corporation. So also recently, the Tukwila Council voted to place a 6-month moratorium on building new ICE facilities or on changing any existing building to be a detention facility. So at first I was like, well, isn't that going to prevent this potential new ICE expansion? But no, that only applies if you are changing existing property in some way. So if there's a private company like the Saby Corporation that's just going to lease their facility to ICE, Tukwila City Council can't do anything about that. The moratorium doesn't apply. So, Hannah, I know you were at a protest last week at the Saby Corporation headquarters. Tell us about what that was like. Where was it? What were people demanding? And I guess also I want to know, how did you get there without a car?
Great questions. All good questions. Yeah, that was I think earlier, that was Wednesday of last week. I remember. But that was an action. I think maybe a couple hundred people were down there in Tukwila, and the Saby Corporation headquarters actually right across the street from the DHS building down into Tukwila. I think it's actually called the Seattle ICE field office, but it's in Tukwila, so it's kind of confusing. That was a site of a lot of action this summer, but across the street is the headquarters for Saby Corporation, and I got down there just fine. I walked downtown from Capitol Hill, and then there's a bus that takes I think it's like a 45-minute bus, but then my journey home was longer just because I was bad at transit home, but and it's uphill, I can't walk but yeah, I got there fine, and I imagine that people will be, in Tukwila and other South King County cities will be probably a larger site of ICE response and protests going forward, I would imagine.
Yeah. So what were people demanding? Like what were people saying outside of the corporation headquarters?
Yeah, I mean, there were some good signs, comparing, calling Saby like collaborationists, which I think, like in the historical context, like that is what they're gonna go down as if they lease office space to ICE. And there was a sign that kind of poked fun at their one of the slogans listed on their website is like cool people doing cool stuff, and then there was a sign that said,
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, cruel people doing cruel stuff. Or maybe it's not stuff, it might be things, but some word to that extent. And it's also like, even if that is your slogan, it's like, you guys are doing commercial real estate. Are you really that cool? Like, I can't imagine I want to hang out with any of you. Not to be like so anti-landlord, but
you know that saying that's like, people who like are a certain way don't need to tell you who they are. Like, if you're cool, you don't need to be like, I'm cool.
Yeah, you don't need to say that if it's true.
Yeah, cool people. But I think the demands, I mean, it's hard to demand stuff of what I've been wrestling with in some of my writing is it's hard to demand stuff from private corporations because they don't have like a public comment period. They don't like respond to their constituents, and even elected officials don't really respond to their constituents all that quickly or all that completely very often. And then it's also like, okay, you go to what do you do on the private sector to exert power? You do like a boycott. Kind of hard to boycott commercial real estate as like an individual consumer. Like I think I've been boycotting commercial real estate my whole life by not buying any real estate. Like I don't know how you would. Maybe someone smarter has. Maybe that's a stupid point for someone who really knows like how to do boycotts and stuff and how to like exert pressure on corporations. But it's a hard position to be in for activists and to figure out how to get this. Besides, like, just like continue reputational damage to get these the Saby family and the Saby Corporation to really respond to this community concern when they have probably a pretty good chunk of money coming in from ICE to rent out that place.
Right. I mean, I think that's gotten activists to get a little creative. So, I mean, I didn't know anything about Saby Corporation before this. But apparently Joe Saby, who is the president of the company, is also the mayor of Hunts Point, which is something that activists are harping on right now. Ashley, I'm curious, do you know Hunts Point?
I do, but them having a mayor is news to me. I had no idea. That's wild.
For people who don't know Hunts Point, how would you describe it?
I guess it's a town. I thought it was just a neighborhood, but it's on the Bellevue-Kirkland side of things on Lake Washington, right off of 520. And it's like where all the big wigs have their very fancy, very rich houses, right?
Yes. So Jeff Bezos has lived there. Former Seahawks head coach Pete Carroll has had a house there. The president of Nordstrom, former president of Nordstrom, Blake Nordstrom, Steve Ballmer had a house there. It is quite small. There's a population of 457 people as of the 2020 census, and it's 0.75 square miles. So it's quite small.
Wow.
And Ashley, yeah, like my main interaction with Hunts Point is whenever I've ridden my bike across the 520 trail, you end up in Hunts Point for a little while. And there was one time that I was stuck in traffic on one of the side streets. I can't remember why. There must have been a car accident. And there's this woman who got out of her Tesla to yell at a cop, "I live in Hunts Point," like over and over again, just being like, please just let me through the traffic. And that is just forever imprinted on my mind and is like my main
That's beautiful.
memory associated with Hunts Point. I don't know if she was a good representative of the rest of her 450 residents in that area, but
that's the new "do you know who I am?" It's like, do you know where
literally.
I live?
She had that energy and we were all like, we don't know who you are. And also, yeah, I'm so sorry that you also have to sit in this traffic even though you do live a mile away. We're all trying to get somewhere. Anyway, so Joe Saby is also the mayor of Hunts Point. Hannah, you reported that advocates had these plans to confront Saby at a Hunts Point council meeting, but they canceled the meeting. What happened with all of that?
Yeah, so I think later that week, people started, looking into who these people are and figure out Joe Saby's the mayor. And then there was kind of an autonomous call for action. So it wasn't really organized by anyone. So I wasn't sure like how big the turnout was going to be if it happened. But then shortly after, like flyers circulated social media, the city of Hunts Point put out a notice for their agenda that just said the meeting's canceled for lack of agenda items. So apparently there's just nothing anyone in Hunts Point wants to talk about this month. They only have meetings once a month, so they're skipping till I guess April then. It was supposed to be Monday, March 2nd. And that continue. I mean, obviously, if he continues to be the mayor, he can't skip every city council meeting forever. Eventually, I'm sure people will move on, but I don't know when. And I think there's other political levers like in that same vein that people are going to like maybe start to catch on to, which will be interesting to see what like paths they take.
Are there any leads that you want to point us towards here?
I'm not endorsing any of these tactics. I'm just saying Saby Corporation is a huge political donor. And like you can go to the PDC and see all the campaigns that they've donated to. A lot of them are Republicans, and so it's not going to be people who you're going to like be able to exert like pressure to like hurt Saby Corporation's reputation or to like get them to like talk to Saby Corporation. And it's a little bit of like a transit property, like let's pressure the lawmaker who's getting money from them to try to hurt, you could make Sabi Corporation sort of a pariah in the same way that APAC is, I guess, where it's like, oh, you take Sabi Corporation money, and that'll maybe make people want to cut ties with the company because it's like, well, if you do stuff with Sabi Corporation, they're ICE's landlord, So there's
which campaigns have they donated to?
a ton. Mostly they donate to these big PACs that do like just pro corporate and like data center kind of related advocacy in the state ledge. But for 2026, they've donated to, I think, so far 4 Democrat state lawmaker campaigns, and that is Senator Marco Leas, Senator John Lovick, and then Representatives Rule and Berg, who are all sort of in this Western Washington area, and like people that maybe could be responsive to pressure, and people who I think have supported some of the more borderline performative stuff that the state legislature has done to like respond to ICE. And so maybe if they heard the $1,000 you received for your campaign is tying you to ICE's landlord, so we don't believe that you care about immigrant communities, maybe they'll call Joe Sabi up for you, or maybe there'll be some kind of path from that. But that's another, I don't know, in the Democratic like institution avenue, similar to going to a public comment for someone's day job.
Mm-hmm. Makes me think of that quote that's like, what if you just called him up?
Exactly. It feels like that's like, I don't know if that's gonna work, but those are people that maybe need some pressure regardless to why do you take money from the data center company that is housing ICE in your neighborhood?
Mm-hmm. I do think that's a more traditional way of trying to pull some levers among people who have a position of power.
Yeah.
But in thinking about confronting Sabi at a Hunts Point council meeting, for instance, last question for you all, is this a fair way of confronting this guy?
I don't think we confront politicians like this enough, or rich people enough, I guess. People that are having some kind of impact on others. I don't think that we publicly shame and blame them enough to their faces, and that we should do that more often. But I also don't know how hard it is to get into Hunts Point. I imagine you're going to need a code, a key card, like somebody walking you in there. I don't know how easy it's going to be to get to him. Right?
His house, probably. I would assume that at the council meeting, you would think that would be a public location.
You would
hence people trying to show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think if you are comfortable, aiding and abetting this like abduction scheme, I don't think you should know a day of peace the rest of your life. I don't what the fuck is wrong with this person? And I don't have any sympathy for him really at all.
Yeah, the other part of my question was, do we care about that right now? Because there are a lot of things that are unfair at this moment, and it seems like either way, we'll see if by April people want to show up at that Hunts Point meeting, or if they again just have nothing to talk about.
No one is taking him away from his family. No one is abducting him and putting him in a concentration camp in a country he's never been to. No one is doing anything to threaten his safety in the way that he is threatening countless unnamed people that he does not obviously see as valuable to society. Like I agree. He deserves something.
All right, well, let's take a break, and when we come back, let's talk about the new big employer in town. According to the Seattle Times, Amazon is no longer Seattle's largest employer. They now employ around 50K employees, which is still a lot, but they're number 2. So I wanted to quiz you all, with Amazon no longer number 1, what do you think the new number 1 is?
Man, I would think like the city of Seattle or something, like maybe like a government employer would be number 1, or because Microsoft isn't really in the city. They're
mostly on the east side.
That's a good question. I don't know. Hannah, do you have a guess?
No, I should have read this before, then I could have spoiled it. I don't know.
take a wild guess.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would guess like maybe Facebook, but I also think they're also mostly on the east side too. I don't know where they're all headquartered anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I know Facebook has a building in Fremont, but I do not know, and South Lake Union,
Yeah.
but I do not know how many people. So I just looked it up. City of Seattle employs roughly 14,000 people. So
not even
quite a
close.
few, many fewer than the 50,000 that work at Amazon. And Meta also
It's gonna
has
be like 10 people. I'm so dumb. I'm just trying to think of where people I know work. I'm like, I have some friends that work at Facebook.
right. I know a handful of people
Yeah.
who work at Facebook. I think Facebook is also on the scale of several thousand
Yeah, okay.
people, but not 50,000. So the new number one employer in Seattle proper is University of Washington,
Oh.
Wow.
good on
Okay.
them.
which is kind of nice because it's a publicly owned university, and I do like a public university being a top employer in town.
Yeah.
I'm looking up the number of people who work at University of Washington.
And that's like including like the hospitals then. I guess that's
Oh,
the
true.
whole system. That makes sense. That
Yeah.
would be a big
That makes
big
sense.
system.
So at its peak in 2020, Amazon had about 60,000 employees, but now that's dropped below 50,000, and UW has just over 50,000, so they've just squeaked into that first place position. When I first moved to Seattle in the mid 2010s, it felt like Amazon was always expanding, but that has been changing since 2020. What has happened since then? What have you all noticed about Amazon's footprint in town?
Since 2020, like since COVID closures and everyone working from home, Amazon has kind of reduced their workforce, but they did make everyone go back to the office. So I'm kind of surprised that they're closing offices. That like they still don't have enough people, I'm assuming, to fill the buildings in the way that they used to. That's my impression of what's happening anyway.
Yeah, I mean, you see a different headline every week that's like Amazon, despite record profits, lays off 10,000 people
Mhm.
because they want to do AI, and then they'll blame some kind of corporate tax to give themselves arguments and headlines to point to when they're in Olympia like lobbying. But I mean, I think there was like a case of this tech boom, and then like they hired, and then it's like, okay, we had kind of a lot of people playing ping pong at the lunch break, and maybe we it's like it was just kind of I think there was some genuine overhire during this like huge boom where everyone was studying to be like a computer engineer. What is it called? A software engineer? Fuck. A software engineer.
Something like that. Yeah,
and then things have just changed where it's like now there's maybe less positions and some automation and some things, and maybe there is some truth that there's some movement like around, and a lot going on.
Not to harp on a tiny detail, Hannah, except I'm going to do that.
Please.
I don't think Amazon's the ping pong one.
Oh.
I think that's Google and Facebook. I think those were the fun ones, and then Amazon's reputation was like
They're serious.
like we chew you up and spit you out. Like we're like all about efficiency. I don't know that they like have
Okay.
all the little frills.
That's honestly even makes my point better then. Chew you up and spit you out. We're in the spit out, girl.
We're in this.
Yeah, they hired all these fresh grads with, apple cheeks, and then got them addicted to cocaine, and then they left, and they had to fire half of them. I don't know, something like that.
They do
All right,
have,
well,
like,
if you work at Amazon and you're listening to this, tell us how accurate that is. I want to know if you have a ping pong table in your office. Maybe that is what would get them to come into the office. No, I do think more seriously, though, that folks who were hired by Amazon, especially in the work from home era, who were then told they had to return to office, I know many of those folks live far away from the office.
Yeah.
Like that ends up being a enormous decrease in your quality of life, where you've gone from no commute to 2.5 hours on the road driving back and forth to the office. So I can imagine, like, I personally have heard from Amazon employees who say, I'm trying to get out of here, or I did get out of here because I couldn't take it anymore. The other tie into all of this, or what this gets me to think about, is the millionaire's tax. So we've talked about that quite a bit on this show. It is currently still in play in the Washington legislature. And at the end of last week, progressive Democrats passed an amendment that would remove a big tax break for big businesses. And I feel like when we talk about big businesses in town, we're always talking about Amazon, what was formerly the number one biggest employer, now number two, but still a huge presence. Hannah, I know you covered this. So what was the break that was proposed, and, like, how much would this have cost us?
My
What happened
favorite
with it?
topic. The only thing I've been talking about all week. Okay, so back in the interim, the Senate and House leadership negotiated before getting to the bargaining table with corporations. They've basically admitted this in like different like town halls, and then advocates, saw it all happening, kind of, where, okay, we're going to do an income tax because that's how we can do progressive revenue without pissing off big corporations who have a more powerful lobby group than just like individual rich people, and more organized at least. And to make sure that big business doesn't like collude with those rich people to like stop it, we're going to put in this sweetener, which was a $500 million handout that would end a surcharge on the biggest on the B&O tax for the biggest businesses in the state a year early, and cost $550 million in expected revenue, when we're already in a huge deficit that's causing, despite all this talk about progressive revenue, causing massive austerity, especially in childcare and early education and higher education, which is, as you may have heard, the state's paramount duty to provide, but or at least K through 12. So on Friday, and this has been kind of bubbling after the Senate passed their version, no one even mentioned this corporate handout for the 3 hours of like floor debate. It just didn't come up. And then finally, some progressives on the House side decided we should really fight this handout. We're facing like massive austerity and we need all the money we can get. And then on Friday in the Finance Committee, they passed this amendment. And now it'll go to the floor as amended, without the corporate handout, without that $500 million handout. And we'll see if it sticks. And if it sticks and it passes with that amendment, then the two sides, the Senate and the House, will have to reconcile their versions. And that will be where I'm sure there'll be, that's all kind of behind the scenes. And it'll be a bloodbath that we won't really see that much of.
Yes, the behind the scenes negotiation. So it'll still need to be voted on. I am also curious. I know advocates who have been opposed to the millionaire's tax have pointed to this anecdotal evidence that the legislation might lead to millionaires leaving Washington. How might the contraction of Amazon play into this narrative?
I do think they're going to people who aren't for this will point to that and say, look, like the big business is already leaving, but don't fall for that. Amazon was already closing offices and moving things along way before this. So, but I do think, unfortunately, that it will be seen as a result of it if it fully goes through.
I mean, people are definitely already pointing to things like the Jumpstart tax in Seattle as a reason that Amazon has backed away. And I mean, they've definitely played that game a bit too. I remember with opening HQ2 and moving things away from Seattle. Seems like things are contracting, but it's unclear how causally related they are to any city or state policy here.
I don't want to hear anything about big businesses, specifically tech. I'm gonna go on a rant, but
yes,
I just don't think that it has. I don't want to hear them complain about taxes when they're embracing AI so much and automation. If you're going to just embrace AI and turn everything into AI and lay off all of your people for AI and then close your offices and say, but the taxes, I just think that's ridiculous and I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, I mean, I think the argument that the more corporate Dems or the Republicans will make is these are big job providers
Mhm.
That's just kind of a weird way to say of like people who profit of other people's labor. But if we tax them to hell, they're gonna get rid of the jobs. Like they want to get rid of the jobs. The goal is
They're
to
already doing it.
lean their workforce as much as possible, and they're taking every opportunity with AI to do that. So this is all a part of their plan, regardless of the taxation.
Yeah. Sad but true.
The only way I feel like I know how to push back against AI, besides talking about it quite often, is the derogatory term clanker.
Yes.
I will just be using the term clanker for the next 25 years until our robot overlords try and off me for
That's
being
true.
insubordinate.
I love that we've gone from condo overlords to robot overlords. Oh, Seattle.
Womp womp.
Womp womp.
All right,
Womp.
well, as a palate cleanser to this conversation, we're going to take a little break and we'll come back and talk about some good news. Okay, so it's Tuesday and it's time yet again for my favorite segment of the week, Good News Day Tuesday, where we talk about nice things that happen in the news. This week, I feel like we need it particularly badly. So I'll kick things off by saying that the city announced that we're going to get a new bike lane on Yesler that goes from Occidental to the waterfront. Essentially, it's filling this weird little gap in the bike infrastructure downtown that really needs to be filled. It's really hard to get through that part of Pioneer Square. And construction is going to start really soon. And it's just exciting to see the city taking quick action on this. I'm sure that FIFA is maybe part of the impetus to try and get things done. But glad to see it. Love to see it. Ashley, do you have any good news that you've seen from the last week or so?
I mean, I feel like I have to create my own good news.
There you
which
go.
is usually just like something that brings me joy, and I will call it news. It's not news at all. But I found this little coffee shop journal specifically for Seattle at Swing-A-Day in Fremont.
Oh.
And it's illustrated by Emily Weissman, who made our beautiful Seattle maps for our neighbors that we promoted during like the membership campaign. So
I
like
love
she's an incredible
that.
artist in town. And this little coffee shop journal, you can fill in all the coffee shops that you try around town. You put your tasting notes, what you ordered, who you were with, the music that was playing. It's so cute. And for me, it like gives me a reason to go try new places because I can put them in my journal. So it's not news, but it is like the good thing I'm focusing on doing this week.
That's really lovely.
That's
Also, I've never heard the name of that store pronounced out loud before. It's Swing-A-Day?
I was horrified the whole time by saying it. I do believe it's Swing-A-Day. If not, someone tell me.
Yeah, someone will.
For sure.
Someone definitely will.
For sure.
It's such
They're
a cute
already
store.
typing.
It is the cutest store. If you are listening and you haven't been there, it's in Fremont. It's great for gifts and cards and art, and it's wonderful.
Wonderful.
Oh, that's
Hannah,
wonderful.
you have any good news?
My good news was going to be the removal of the corporate tax break on the House side, but I'll find another one. On Tuesday, the City Council will vote on Councilmember Alexis Mercedes-Rink's proposed moratorium on detention centers in Seattle, which will be cool. And it's designed to like make sure ICE can't build a new facility in Seattle at least for a year. I know that like the feds don't have a great track record of like following the law, but maybe this will be like, a grain of sand in the gears of fascism. And I think it'll probably pass. And I'm excited to watch that meeting and see like public comment and see like what advocates are saying they want to see more of. Because I think this is, the start of a conversation, not hopefully the only thing that the city will do to stand up to ICE.
That reminds me also that Mayor Wilson posted some photos of her with other city employees posting signs around town saying that ICE is not welcome, essentially.
Have you seen any at local businesses you like, Jane?
At local, I have seen not a city issued one, but just the I don't know who distributes them actually, but there's one at Rosita's in Green Lake that says everyone is welcome here except ICE. And every time I walk by, I'm like, yeah, okay.
I
Yes.
saw my first city issued one, I think, over the weekend at Panoyski, which is like this Polish, Filipino, like pierogi place,
Mm.
also vegan friendly, very Capitol Hill. And they had like the city issued one with all like the legalese stuff that's like, oh, like here, you can't be here, you can't be here. That hopefully, like,
Pursuant city code,
yeah,
blah, blah, blah.
yeah. So they had the first one I saw, but there are a ton that are just like, some are just like very basic, like no ice, and then some have these like more like trying to make a legal argument, and maybe that'll be helpful. We'll see.
I always think of the meme of
Mhm.
DW from Arthur standing in front of a sign saying, "This sign can't stop me because I can't read."
Exactly.
But this is the Good News Day Tuesday segment. So
I
we're
know.
going to say the signs will stop people who can read, clearly.
That's true. Hopefully.
Yep.
Yes.
Mhm.
A couple of other nice pieces of news I wanted to shout out. Seven Hills Park on the Hill has reopened after a long closure, and also the retrofit of the Hiawatha Center in West Seattle. So I did not know this previously. It's like this old brick building, so I assumed it was an older building, but apparently it's the oldest building in the Parks and Rec system in Seattle. It's
Wow.
115 years old, and they just did a seismic retrofit, and it's finally open again, and they had a nice little opening ceremony, and there was Mayor Katie Wilson and a DJ. In my head, I was like, what if Katie Wilson just became a DJ? I feel like that would be like a two birds, one stone thing. It's like you get the mayor and a DJ at your event.
Wow.
Save some
Yeah,
money.
I could see that selling for sure.
Be good for the city budget, honestly,
Yeah.
if they're doing city sponsored events.
If
Right?
we all have side gigs, then she also has to have a side gig.
That's
That's
true.
just the way
Right?
it goes.
It's the most millennial thing to have a side hustle.
Yeah.
And I mean, Mayor Harrell, when he retired, said that he was going to pursue his rap career. So there's like a whole act
Yeah.
right there. You know?
Waiting for the
Yeah.
EP to drop, you know. Feel a little like another broken promise from Bruce Harrell. One last one for the road.
All right, let's leave it there. Hannah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Ashley, thank you also for being here.
Yeah, anytime.
That's all for today here at CityCast Seattle. I'm your host, Jane Sihu. And listeners, remember that we love hearing from you all. Send us your news tips, your questions. If you work at Amazon, tell us if you have a ping pong table in your office. Send us an email at seattle@citycast.fm. You can also text us or leave us a voicemail on the CityCast hotline at 206-880-3931. So Ashley was shouting out that cute coffee book from the artist Emily Weissman and the fact that our CityCast Seattle neighbors all got a little print from Emily Weissman. I wanted to give shout outs to our new CityCast Seattle neighbors, Amanda P., Kelly W., Brittany M., Robert Z., Aaron C., Tolly B., Michelle B., and Mara D. Thank you all so much for joining us. I think all of you are going to get a print, so we'll give you details about how to pick that up soon. Until next time, see ya, Seattle.
I can't.